Welcome back to Outside Views, and today we need to look at a silent killer of British manufacturing, the failure to join the Pan-Euro-Mediterranean Convention, or PEM. And my personal view is that this is one of the most technical, yet most devastating examples of how the British government has failed its own industries in the pursuit of a hollow sovereignty. If the customs union is the front door to trade, the PEM convention is the plumbing. You don't notice it until it stops working, and everything starts to smell. We're now in January 2026, and while the EU and its neighbors have just finished modernizing their trade rules for this year, Britain is sitting on the outside, begging for consultations while its factories are being cut out of the European supply chains. It's absolutely staggering that the UK government is still seeking views on joining PEM when the automotive and textile industries have been screaming for it since 2021. The reality is that by not being in PEM, Britain has effectively made its own components radioactive for any European company that wants to export elsewhere. And to understand why this is a disaster, you have to understand a concept called diagonal cumulation. In simple terms, PEM is a club of 27 countries, including the EU, Switzerland, Turkey, Norway, and even Morocco and Ukraine, who all agree to treat each other's parts as local. If a German car manufacturer uses a steering wheel made in Turkey and seats made in Morocco, those parts count as European when that car is exported to Switzerland. But because Britain is not in the PEM club, a British-made engine used in the same German car is treated as foreign or non-originating. And my view is that this puts a massive do not buy sign on British parts. If a German factory can choose between a British engine and a French one, they will pick the French one every time because it makes their final product easier to export tariff-free. And the UK is stuck in a bilateral trap, where parts only count as local if they stay within the UK-EU bubble, which is a death sentence in a world of complex globalized supply chains. And the irony of 2025 and 2026 is that the UK government finally tried to crawl back toward PEM only to be met with a cold shoulder from Brussels. Following the UK-EU summit in May 2025, the British government published a new trade strategy that explicitly mentioned joining PEM to ease post-Brexit friction. But the European Commission has reportedly blocked the bid, citing concerns that British goods could gain unfair low tariff access to the EU market. And it's a classic case of too little too late. The UK spent years slagging off EU institutions and insisting on its own bespoke rules, and now that it wants back in, the EU is in no mood to do any favors. At the end of December 2025, the Department for Business and Trade was still running a call for evidence that closed on December 22nd, but let's be real, the evidence has been in for years. The lack of PEM membership is costing the automotive sector alone billions because they cannot count components from places like Turkey or Serbia toward that crucial 55% local content threshold. And the clock is ticking even louder because of the January 2026 deadline. The PEM Club has just implemented modernized rules that are more flexible and business-friendly, including electronic certification and higher tolerance for non-local materials. And while the rest of Europe and North Africa move into this faster and digital future, British exporters are still stuck in a 20th century world of paper forms and rigid bilateral checks. The Society of Motor Manufacturers and Traders has been pleading with the government to align the UK-EU trade deal with these PEM rules, but the lock-in mechanism in the current treaty makes that almost impossible before 2032. And my strong personal view is that the UK is being left behind in a variable geometry Europe where the neighbors are getting closer and Britain is drifting further into the mid-Atlantic. And the outside view is that Britain is currently an island in more ways than just one. And by refusing to join a technical convention like PEM because of some misguided fear of following EU rules, the government is actively dismantling the country's manufacturing base. Every day the UK stays out of PEM is a day that a British factory loses a contract to a competitor in Morocco, Turkey or Poland. And the Global Britain brand is being exposed as a collection of expensive barriers that make it harder to do business with your own backyard. And it's not just a technical detail, it's the difference between being part of the European industrial heartland and being an expensive, isolated workshop that nobody wants to use. The crawl back is happening, but at this rate, there might not be any industry left to save by the time they arrive.